You'll love the new nursing home, my son said, smiling like he was offering me paradise. That was the moment I knew something inside me had died. I sat there at the table, surrounded by my children, the same children I had carried, fed, and sacrificed everything for, and watched them discuss my future like I wasn't even in the room. My daughter, Monica, was scrolling through her phone, nodding at pictures of pastel-colored walls and old people doing crafts. My son, David, had his arm around his wife, Lauren, who smiled too sweetly for my liking. They were all so calm, so comfortable deciding what to do with me. Meanwhile, I sat there clutching my handbag like it was the last piece of my life I still owned. My name is Evelyn May Carter, and I am 73 years old. I was born and raised in Atlanta, Georgia, back when neighbors still waved at each other from porches and Sunday dinner was sacred. I was a nurse for 45 years before I retired. I've spent my whole life taking care of people, my patients, my late husband, and my children. But nobody tells you what happens when the people you took care of decide they don't need you anymore. After my husband, Charles, passed away 10 years ago, I stayed in the house we built together. A modest two-story place on Magnolia Street with a rose garden he planted himself. It wasn't fancy, but it was home. I filled my days with cooking, volunteering at church, and crocheting blankets for the newborns in the neighborhood. I thought I was content. Then my health started giving me trouble, mild arthritis, nothing major. Suddenly, my children started treating me like I was fragile glass. It began with little things. Mom, you shouldn't be climbing stairs. Mom, maybe we should look into assisted living, just for safety. But this lunch was different. David cleared his throat and placed a brochure on the table like he was revealing a prize. Mama, look at this place. They've got a gym, a chapel, even a craft room. You could finally have some company. I stared at the glossy paper. The picture showed smiling seniors playing bingo, their eyes glazed over with that forced joy people wear when they've given up fighting. Monica leaned forward, her voice dripping with fake cheer. You'd love it there, Mom. You always said you wanted friends your age. They even have crochet classes. Lauren giggled like it was funny. And they have a garden, too. Maybe you can teach the other ladies your rose tricks. I took a slow sip of water to hide my trembling lips. Why are you all so eager to send me away? David sighed, his tone patronizing. We're not sending you away, Mama. We just want you safe. You live all alone in that big house. You could fall, or... I cut him off. I've been living alone for 10 years, David. I've managed just fine. Lauren exchanged a look with Monica. Mom, Monica said gently, we've already spoken to someone about helping sell the house. The market's good right now. You'd have enough money to live comfortably for years. The words hit like a slap. Sell the house. The house where Charles and I danced barefoot in the kitchen on our wedding anniversary. The house where I brought both my babies home from the hospital. The house where I sat by the window every morning, praying for them. They were talking about selling my memories like they were items on clearance. I couldn't breathe. The chatter around the table blurred into noise. The clinking of cutlery, the sound of a baby crying at another table, the faint hum of music from the restaurant speakers. When I finally spoke, my voice was small but steady. I see. You've already decided this, haven't you? David's eyes softened, but his words didn't. Mama, you'll thank us later. Change is hard, but this is what's best for you. Lauren smiled. You'll love the new nursing home, Mrs. Carter. They even have crochet classes. The words echoed in my head like a curse. That night, when they dropped me back home, I walked through the quiet house slowly. The walls felt smaller. Even the air seemed heavier, like it knew what was coming. There were boxes stacked in the hallway, boxes Monica had labeled donate and keep. They had started packing without asking me. I stood in the living room, staring at the framed picture of Charles on the mantel. He was wearing that same crooked smile he always had after mowing the lawn, sweat on his brow, pride in his eyes. I whispered, They think I'm done, Charles. They think my story's over. The house didn't answer, but the clock on the wall ticked louder, as if urging me to move. I sat on the couch, running my fingers over the worn edges of the photograph. I remembered the promise I made to Charles before he died. I'll be okay. I'll take care of myself. I had kept that promise all these years. I wasn't going to break it now. I got up, went to his old study, and opened the bottom drawer of his desk. It still smelled faintly of tobacco and old leather. Beneath a stack of yellowed papers was a brown envelope marked for emergencies. I'd seen it before, but I had never opened it. My hands shook as I unfolded it. Inside was a savings passbook and a safety deposit key, accounts I didn't even know still existed. My husband had been saving quietly, just in case life turned hard. I smiled through my tears. Thank you, Charles. The next morning, I woke up before sunrise. The house was still and quiet, except for the low hum of the refrigerator. I walked from room to room, touching the walls, the furniture, the curtains. Every corner had a memory. The spot where David broke a lamp playing ball inside, the crack in the wall from Monica's first attempt at hanging a mirror, the old chair where Charles used to read the newspaper. I boiled water for tea and sat by the window as dawn painted the sky orange. My heart was breaking, but there was something else rising beneath the sadness. Resolve. I wasn't going to let them erase me. I wasn't going to sit in a rocking chair waiting to die while they enjoyed the money from selling my home. No. If they wanted me gone, I'd give them exactly what they asked for, but not the way they expected. By 9 o'clock, I'd made some calls. First to my old friend Clara, who still volunteered at the church. She gave me the number of her nephew, who worked at an airline. Then to the bank to check the account from Charles's savings. The balance was more than enough. I spent the rest of the day quietly preparing. I packed a small suitcase, just clothes, my Bible, my crochet kit, and the picture of Charles. I left the rest. Let them have the furniture and the dishes and the house if they wanted it so bad. Before sunset, I sat down at the kitchen table and wrote a note. My dear children, you wanted me in a new home, so I found one. Don't worry about me. I'm safe and happy. I took what mattered most. Take care of yourselves. Love always, Mama. I folded the note and placed it on the kitchen counter beside the vase of roses Charles planted. Then I locked the front door behind me, slipped the key into the mailbox, and took one last look at the house that held my entire life. I didn't cry. Not anymore. The taxi driver was a young man with a soft voice and curious eyes. Going somewhere nice, ma'am? He asked. I smiled faintly. Somewhere peaceful. When he helped me load my suitcase into the trunk, I looked up at the night sky, clear and wide and endless. For the first time in a long while, I felt that same freedom I used to feel when Charles and I would drive to the lake on summer nights. No destination in mind, just us and the road. When he helped me load my suitcase into the trunk, I looked up at the night sky, clear and wide and endless. For the first time in a long while, I felt that same freedom I used to feel when Charles and I would drive to the lake on summer nights. No destination in mind, just us and the road. As the taxi pulled away from Magnolia Street, I whispered to myself, "You'll love the new home, Mama." Then I laughed, not the bitter kind, but the kind that comes from realizing you've taken your life back. Tomorrow, while my children counted the money from selling my things, I'd already be gone, far away, free, and finally living for myself. If this story speaks to your heart, or reminds you of someone strong like Evelyn May Carter, don't forget to like this video, subscribe, and hit that bell icon so you never miss the next chapter. And let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'd love to hear your stories too. The morning after that lunch, sunlight crept through my curtains like it didn't know it was shining on a battlefield. My house looked the same, neat, quiet, familiar, but something had shifted inside me. I wasn't the same woman who'd sat silently while her children planned her exile. No, that Evelyn was gone. What remained was a woman who'd finally had enough. The phone rang before I could even pour my coffee. It was Monica. "Good morning, Mom. Did you sleep well?" she asked in that overly sweet voice that only meant trouble. I hummed noncommittally. "I slept fine." "Why?" "Well," she continued, "David and I thought we'd come by later today. Maybe help you start sorting through things? You know, make the moving process easier." Moving process. The words burned. I took a long breath, trying to keep my voice even. "You don't need to come by today, baby. I've got some things to do." There was a pause. What kind of things? Just errands, I said, forcing cheer into my tone. Groceries. Church business. Another pause. I could almost hear her frown through the phone. Okay, but don't wear yourself out, all right? I won't, I said and hung up before she could add anything else. For a moment, I stood there, the quiet humming in my ears. Then I said softly to myself, they're not going to pack me away like an old photograph. I walked into Charles's study again, the smell of old paper and cedar still lingering. I'd spent most of last night going through his things, remembering his voice, calm, steady, always believing in me. On the desk lay the savings passbook and the safety deposit key I'd found. I ran my fingers over them again, feeling a strange mix of fear and determination. Charles had always said, a plan is only as good as the courage behind it. Well, I had courage now. Too much, maybe. I got dressed, put on a floral blouse, and wrapped a scarf around my hair. My knees ached a bit, but I ignored it. I caught the bus downtown, sitting quietly among strangers, my handbag pressed against my chest like a shield. At the bank, the air smelled of new money and polished floors. I walked up to the counter where a young woman smiled mechanically. Good morning, ma'am. How can I help you? I need access to a safety deposit box, I said, handing her the key and Charles's old ID. She typed for a while, her nails clacking against the keyboard. Certainly, Mrs. Carter. Right this way. Inside the small, quiet room, she handed me the box and stepped out politely. My hands trembled slightly as I opened it. Inside were neatly folded papers, bonds, certificates, and a small envelope filled with cash. I let out a slow, shaky breath. Charles, I whispered, you old fox. You knew one day I'd need this. I tucked the envelope into my bag, took only what I needed, and left the rest. As I stepped back out into the sunlight, the city looked different. Sharper, louder, more alive. I felt it in my bones. I was no longer trapped. My next stop was the travel agency 2 blocks away. A bell jingled as I entered. The man behind the desk looked to be in his 30s, with kind eyes and a patient smile. His name tag read Ethan. How can I help you today, ma'am? I need a ticket, I said, my voice low. One way. Somewhere warm. Peaceful. He grinned. We've got plenty of warm places. Florida? Hawaii? I shook my head. Too close. I want somewhere different. Somewhere no one will think to look. He leaned forward slightly, intrigued. What about the islands? Barbados, maybe? The name made my heart skip. Barbados. Charles had always said he wanted to take me there one day, back when we still believed we had all the time in the world. Yes, I said softly. Barbados sounds perfect. He typed rapidly. I can get you a flight tomorrow morning. There's a seat available on the 7:45 a.m. departure. Do you need a return ticket? I smiled faintly. No, son. Just one way. His eyes flickered with curiosity, but he didn't ask. All right then. I'll just need your passport. I pulled it from my bag, still valid, though the picture was from a decade ago. I barely recognized the woman in it. Fewer wrinkles, brighter eyes, but the same spirit hiding underneath. He printed the ticket, placed it in an envelope, and handed it to me. Enjoy your trip, Mrs. Carter. Oh, I plan to, I said. When I stepped out into the street again, I felt light, almost giddy. The air tasted like freedom. Back home, the house was too quiet. The clock ticked steadily, the refrigerator hummed, and the afternoon sun painted the walls gold. I sat on the couch, ticket in hand, staring at the delicate print. Tomorrow morning I'd be gone. Just like that. I picked up the photo of my children on the mantel, David in his graduation gown, Monica holding her firstborn. I remembered how proud I'd been that day, how full of hope. I'd believed that if I gave them love, they'd give it back. But life doesn't work like that. I'd watched them grow into people who measured care in dollars and affection in convenience. They called it love, but love doesn't throw you away when you become inconvenient. The doorbell rang suddenly, jarring me from my thoughts. I stuffed the ticket into my blouse pocket and hurried to the door. It was David, his face flushed, holding a stack of papers. "Hey, Mama," he said, walking in without waiting for an invitation. "We just came from the realtor. He says we can list the house next week." I froze. "Next week?"
Yeah.
He said if we act fast, we could close within a month. That way, you'd be all settled in your new place before Thanksgiving. He talked like this was some charity project. Like I should be grateful. I swallowed hard. "You're moving too fast, David. I haven't agreed to anything." He sighed. "Mama, please. Don't make this harder than it has to be." "Harder than what?" I snapped. "Than watching my own son sell the house his father built with his hands?" His eyes softened. "It's just a house." I stepped closer, my voice rising. "It's not just a house. It's my life. It's where I nursed your daddy through cancer, where I prayed for you every night when you were struggling at college. Don't tell me it's just wood and bricks." He flinched but didn't back down. "You'll thank me later, Mama. I'm just trying to do what's best." "What's best for who?" I asked quietly. He looked at me for a long moment, then shook his head. "You'll understand one day." When he left, I locked the door behind him, my hands trembling. I stood there for a long time, breathing hard, then whispered, "No, David. It's you who'll understand one day." That night, I cooked myself dinner, fried catfish, collard greens, and cornbread, my husband's favorite meal. I ate slowly, savoring every bite, every memory. The house felt warmer somehow, like it was saying goodbye too. After washing the dishes, I sat at the kitchen table and wrote another note. Not for them this time, but for me. A promise. Tomorrow, I start living again. I folded the paper, slipped it into my Bible, and smiled. At dawn, I woke to the sound of rain tapping gently on the windows. I moved quietly, careful not to make a sound as I packed my suitcase. My clothes, my photo album, my crochet bag, and Charles's old watch. That was all I needed. As I zipped the suitcase shut, I looked around one last time. The curtains fluttered slightly, the smell of lavender polish lingering in the air. I whispered, "Goodbye, Charles. I'm keeping my promise." I called for a taxi. When it arrived, I left the keys on the counter beside the note I'd written the night before. My children would find it soon enough. The taxi driver helped me load the bag, glancing at me curiously. "Heading to the airport, ma'am?" "Yes," I said. "And don't worry, I know exactly where I'm going." As we drove away, I didn't look back. I watched the raindrops slide down the window instead, each one catching the glow of the streetlights like tiny diamonds. For 73 years, I'd done everything by the book, worked hard, followed the rules, raised my kids right. But today, I was rewriting my own story. When we reached the airport, the driver wished me luck. I smiled at him, handed him a generous tip, and walked through the doors without hesitation. Inside, everything moved fast, people rushing, announcements echoing, the smell of coffee and jet fuel filling the air. I handed over my ticket, cleared security, and found my gate. As I waited for boarding, I thought of Monica and David. By now, they'd be calling my house, wondering why I wasn't answering. By afternoon, they'd find the note. Maybe they'd panic. Maybe they'd feel guilty. Or maybe they'd just move on. Either way, it didn't matter. When the announcement came, Flight 329 to Barbados now boarding, my heart fluttered. I stood up, steadying myself with the armrest, and whispered, "Here we go, Charles." I walked down the jet bridge slowly, savoring every step. Each one carried me further from the life that tried to confine me, closer to the freedom I'd earned. As the plane lifted off, Atlanta grew smaller beneath me. The streets, the houses, the years of struggle all shrinking into nothing. I pressed my forehead against the window and smiled through the tears. They thought they were sending me to a nursing home, but I was flying to a new life, one they'd never control again. And for the first time in years, I felt truly, wonderfully alive. The next morning, the house felt like a stranger to me. The same marble floors, the same scent of jasmine that drifted from the hallway diffuser, but something inside me had shifted. I wasn't just a woman wronged anymore. I was a woman awakening. The night before, After the chaos of their arrival, after the nerve-wracking dinner and fake laughter, I had sat on the balcony until midnight, watching the city lights blink below. Every sparkle was a reminder of what I'd built, what I earned. And now my so-called family thought they could just waltz back into my life because I had a house worth envying. When I finally went downstairs, I could hear voices from the kitchen, soft, hushed, but distinct enough to know who they belonged to. My brother, Gabriel, was complaining. Again. I'm just saying, Mom, she could at least help me out. The firm's been slow, and she's comfortable. My mother's tone carried a hint of shame. Gabriel, don't sound jealous. She's your sister. I'm not jealous. I'm being realistic. She's got money sitting there doing nothing. She doesn't even have kids or a husband to take care of. What's she saving it for? My hand tightened around the edge of the kitchen doorway. It was like every sentence he said pressed down on my chest. I wanted to storm in and remind him that I was the one who paid for Dad's medical bills when he fell ill. I was the one who wired money to Mom every other month when they forgot to pay their property tax. But I didn't. Not yet. I wanted to hear it all. Then I heard Mom sigh. We shouldn't push her. Not too soon. She's always been sensitive. Sensitive, Gabriel mocked under his breath. You mean difficult. Always emotional. Always acting like a victim. I'm telling you, Mom, she owes us. That word, owes, hit me like ice water. I stepped in before I even realized it. What exactly do I owe you, Gabriel? He froze. Mom jumped, turning with a nervous smile like she'd just seen a ghost. Eliza, we were just talking about breakfast. Breakfast? Sounded more like a financial intervention. My voice was calm, dangerously so. I walked to the coffee machine and pressed a button, letting the hum of grinding beans fill the silence. Go on, Gabriel. Finish your thought. He tried to recover. Look, it's not like that. We were just saying, you've done well for yourself. And, with everything Dad used to say about families sticking together, maybe you could. Maybe I could what? I turned to face him fully. Fund your laziness? Pay for your ego. His jaw tightened. Don't twist it. I'm running a firm. With clients who don't pay, and an ego that costs more than your rent, I snapped. You became the lawyer Dad always wanted, but somehow, I'm the one you expect to bail you out. Mom gasped quietly. Gabriel's eyes darkened, but I wasn't done. You two left me out of every family decision for 15 years, I said, voice rising. You didn't invite me to birthdays, weddings, funerals, nothing. But the moment I move into a house that costs more than your combined mortgages, suddenly I'm family again? Don't talk like that, Mom whispered. We've always loved you. Loved me? I laughed. When Dad died, I had to read about the funeral in the newspaper. She flinched. Gabriel looked away. The silence that followed was thick, uncomfortable. Finally, Mom said softly, We made mistakes, Eliza. We thought you wanted space. 15 years of space, I murmured bitterly. The sound of my coffee machine beeping broke the tension. I picked up the mug, took a long sip, and turned to them. You can stay for the weekend, but that's it. After that, I want you gone. Mom opened her mouth to protest, but the look I gave her silenced her. I walked out of the kitchen before the tears burning behind my eyes could fall. By the afternoon, the air in the house was electric with tension. Every conversation was cautious. Every step felt like walking on broken glass. I went to my study to clear my head, but when I opened the door, I found Gabriel sitting behind my desk, scrolling through my tablet. My blood boiled instantly. What do you think you're doing? He looked up, startled but defiant. Relax. I was just checking my email. Yours was open. On my device? It's just a tablet, he said with a shrug. No, I snapped. It's my property. Get up. He rolled his eyes, muttering something under his breath, but stood. I snatched the tablet and saw that he'd minimized several tabs, banking apps, property listings, even my investment tracker. My hands trembled. You were looking at my finances? Don't be dramatic, he said quickly. I was curious. You've always been secretive. I just wanted to see how you managed to afford all this. By working my ass off, I shouted. While you were out chasing clients that didn't exist and drinking at Dad's old bar, I was building my career. You don't get to snoop through my life just because you feel entitled.
He threw up his hands. Fine.
You don't have to bite my head off. I was only trying to understand how someone like you ended up this successful. The way he said someone like you made me see red. Someone like me? What does that even mean, Gabriel? You know what I mean, he muttered. You weren't exactly the shining star in the family. You barely passed school, couldn't hold a job for long, then suddenly you're rich? Forgive me for being curious. My heart pounded in my chest.
Get out, he scoffed.
You always overreact. Out. I screamed so loud the walls seemed to vibrate. He stormed past me, muttering curses. The moment he was gone, I locked the door behind him. My whole body was shaking. I didn't realize tears had started streaming down my face until one splashed onto the tablet screen. The nerve of him. The sheer arrogance. To sit in my house, use my things, and question my success like it was something I stole. I sank into the chair, trying to breathe. But the more I thought about it, the more something ugly grew inside me. If Gabriel was this bold now, what would stop him from digging deeper? From trying to take something? That night, I couldn't sleep. I sat by the window, staring into the dark garden outside. Mom's laughter floated faintly from the guest room, soft, tired, the same way she used to sound after pretending everything was fine during Dad's rages. But Gabriel's voice was low, intense. I couldn't make out the words, but I knew they were talking about me. Around midnight, I crept out of my room and moved quietly down the hall. Their door was slightly ajar. She's hiding something, Gabriel was saying. No one gets that kind of money overnight. Don't start again, Mom whispered. She's successful. She's allowed to enjoy it. You really believe that? After all these years? She was always secretive. I think she's keeping something from us, something big. Mom sighed. Whatever she's hiding, leave it alone. She's angry enough as it is. I just want what's fair, he said.
Fair.
That word again. I closed the door silently and went back to my room, my heart hammering. They weren't here for reconciliation. They were here for something else. By morning, my decision was made. When I came down for breakfast, they were already sitting at the table. Mom smiled cautiously. Gabriel pretended to scroll through his phone. I stood at the head of the table. I've been thinking, I began, voice steady. You can stay until Sunday. After that, I'll have the driver take you to the station. I'll also give you both a little something for travel expenses. Mom's face softened in relief. Oh, Eliza, that's... But I cut in sharply. I want no more discussions about my money, my property, or my life. If I hear one more whisper, you'll leave that same hour. Gabriel smirked. Are we prisoners now? No, I said coldly.
Guests.
And guests follow house rules. He looked like he wanted to argue, but Mom reached out and touched his arm, silently begging him not to. I turned and walked out before they could see the flicker of hurt that crossed my face. Because deep down, despite all the anger, there was still that small, wounded part of me that wished things could have been different, that they had come for me, not my bank account. But as the weekend went on, it became clear I was right. Gabriel's eyes followed me every time I walked past, like he was studying me. Once, I caught him standing outside my locked study door again, pretending to be on the phone. And my mother, sweet, guilt-filled mother, kept trying to steer conversations toward helping the family or doing what your father would have wanted. It was suffocating. On Sunday morning, I had the driver pull the car around. Gabriel looked stunned when I told him to pack. Already, he asked.
Yes.
Already. Mom pleaded. At least stay for lunch, Eliza. Let's end on a good note. There's nothing left to end, I said quietly. Goodbye. I stood in the doorway as they walked down the steps. Gabriel shot me one last glare before getting into the car. Mom hesitated, looking back at me with sad eyes. You'll regret pushing family away again, she said softly. Maybe, I whispered, but not today. As the car pulled away, I exhaled for what felt like the first time in days. The house was quiet again, mine again. But I didn't realize until later that Gabriel had left something behind. When I walked into my study that evening, the bottom drawer of my desk was open. Inside, one of my old folders had been moved, and a copy of a document I'd kept buried for years was missing. My heart dropped. Gabriel hadn't just been snooping. He'd been searching. And now he had found something that could ruin everything I'd worked for. This wasn't over. Not by a long shot. I didn't sleep that night. Every sound in the house felt like a warning. Every creak of the floorboards, every whisper of wind through the curtains. I knew what Gabriel had taken, even before I tore apart the drawer trying to confirm it. The missing document wasn't just a piece of paper. It was the one thing that could unravel the entire foundation of my life, the truth about how I'd built my fortune. It wasn't illegal, not exactly, but it wasn't clean either. Years ago, when I was clawing my way out of debt and desperation, I made a deal with someone I never wanted my family to know about. A deal that gave me the seed money to start everything, the business, the investments, the luxury they now envied. And if Gabriel had that paper, if he knew whose name was on it, I pressed a trembling hand to my forehead. No, he couldn't know.
Not yet.
He wouldn't understand. None of them would. Morning came like a cruel trick. I made coffee and sat in silence, staring out the window as the early sun bled across the sky. My phone buzzed twice, unknown number. I ignored it. Then it buzzed again. This time, a message appeared. We should talk.
Gee.
I stared at the screen until the words blurred. My stomach twisted. He had the nerve to text me like nothing happened. I typed back. What did you take? The reply came almost instantly. You'll want to discuss this in person. I didn't answer. I just grabbed my keys and went for a drive. The city passed by in a blur of glass and noise, but none of it registered. All I could hear were echoes of his voice from years ago, back when we were still close. You always hide things, Eliza. You always think you're smarter than everyone else. Maybe he was finally right. When I got back that afternoon, there was a car parked outside my gate. A sleek black sedan I didn't recognize. My pulse jumped as I stepped out of mine. And then he appeared, Gabriel, leaning casually against the hood like he owned the place. Missed me already? He said with a smirk. Get to the point, I said, walking past him toward the door. He followed, uninvited, of course. I think we should talk inside. I didn't argue. If the neighbors saw us shouting on the driveway, it'd only feed their gossip. I led him into the living room, the same room he'd once praised for being too rich for your taste. Now he looked around with that same thin-lipped smile, eyes flicking from one expensive piece of furniture to another. So, I said, crossing my arms, you broke into my study. You stole something.
Why?
He chuckled. Stole? That's a strong word. I'd say I rescued it. You've been keeping secrets, Eliza. Give it back. I will, he said smoothly, after we talk. I clenched my jaw. What do you want? Half. The word hit me like a slap. Half of what? Whatever you've got, he said easily. The house, the business, the accounts, everything. I think it's only fair. I laughed, but it came out hollow. You've lost your mind. No, he said, stepping closer. I found it, and I found proof that you didn't build all this on your own, that you had help from some very interesting people. My chest tightened. You have no idea what you're talking about. Oh, I do, he said, pulling a folded paper from his pocket. My paper. This little contract you signed years ago? The one that says you got funding from a private offshore investor who just happens to be under investigation now? Yeah, I did my research. My vision blurred for a second. I reached for the document, but he pulled it back. Relax, I didn't come here to destroy you, he said. I just think, after everything, you owe me a piece of the pie. I stared at him, and suddenly, everything made sense. His sudden visit, his fake concern, even Mom's attempts to smooth things over. He must have told her nothing. She was just a pawn in whatever this was. Let me make this clear, I said quietly. You're blackmailing me.
He smirked.
Such an ugly word. I prefer family negotiation. Something in me snapped. I slapped the paper out of his hand so hard it flew across the room. You think you can threaten me, Gabriel? After everything you've done? After all the years you ignored me, mocked me, left me to survive alone. He didn't flinch. He just smiled that same smug smile. It's funny, isn't it? You always said you were the strong one, the one who didn't need anyone. But it looks like you've been lying all along. Daddy's little disappointment got her hands dirty after all. I froze. His tone, his words, they weren't meant to hurt. They were meant to humiliate. I can ruin you with one email, he continued. All it takes is sending this to the right people. The media would have a field day with this self-made woman who made her fortune with dirty money. I wanted to scream, to throw something, but I didn't. Instead, I smiled.
Slowly, coldly.
Do it, I said. His expression faltered. What? Send it, I repeated. Expose me. Tell the world. But you'd better make sure you're ready for what happens next. He frowned. Are you threatening me? No, I said softly. I'm warning you, because that contract doesn't just have my name on it. It has another one, the same one tied to those missing legal funds at your firm. You remember that little scandal last year? The one you said you handled quietly? His face drained of color. You wouldn't. Oh, I would, I said, stepping closer. I have copies, screenshots, emails, everything. So go ahead, Gabriel. Burn me and I'll take you with me. For the first time, he didn't have a comeback. He just stood there, breathing hard. You really have changed, he muttered finally. No, I said. I've finally learned who I'm dealing with. He turned toward the door, muttering something under his breath. I let him leave. I stood there for a long time after he was gone, listening to the echo of the door slamming shut. But even as I tried to calm myself, I knew this wasn't over. Gabriel wasn't the kind of man who accepted defeat easily.
He'd be back.
He'd planned something worse. By evening, I poured myself a glass of wine and sat in the study. The folder lay open on the desk, the contract inside, now wrinkled from his grip. I should have destroyed it years ago. Instead, I'd kept it, out of guilt, maybe, or fear that I'd need it one day. And now it was the weapon both of us could use to destroy each other. The phone buzzed again. Another message, this time from Mom. Gabriel came home upset. What happened? Please don't fight anymore. He's your brother. I didn't reply. I couldn't, because somewhere deep down I knew this was just the beginning. The next day, the calls started. First from an unknown number, then from a blocked one. Every time I picked up, the line was silent. Then late that night, I got an email. No subject line, no signature. Just one sentence. He's not done with you.
I stared at it for a long time.
There was no attachment, no name, but I knew it was about Gabriel. Or from him. Or worse, someone he'd dragged into this. The days that followed were filled with unease. Shadows seemed to move where they shouldn't. A car lingered too long across the street. I started locking every door twice, checking the cameras, sleeping with the lights on. Then, one evening, my assistant called. Ms. Moreno, she said hesitantly, someone's been asking questions about the early years of your company. A man claiming to be from a financial audit firm. My stomach dropped. Did you give him anything? Of course not. But he was persistent. After I hung up, I sat in the dark, the truth settling over me like a storm cloud. Gabriel wasn't bluffing anymore. He was acting. That night, I called an old contact, a man who owed me more than one favor. I need someone to keep an eye on my brother, I said quietly. Protection, he asked. Information, I replied. I want to know what he's doing, who he's talking to, and when he plans to make his move. The next few days felt like waiting for a bomb to go off. I went about my routines, meetings, emails, charity events, but inside, I was wound tight. Every message, every stranger's glance, felt like an attack waiting to happen. And then it did. Friday afternoon, a headline hit the business news. Anonymous sources question legitimacy of Moreno Holdings' early investments. My heart stopped. There were no names, no direct accusations, but the implication was clear. Someone was feeding them breadcrumbs. And I knew exactly who. I threw my phone across the room and screamed. The sound echoed through the empty house, bouncing off marble and glass until it faded into silence. I sank to the floor, trembling. He was really doing it. My own brother. But he'd made a mistake. He underestimated me. If he wanted war, I'd give it to him. I stood up, wiped my tears, and walked to the mirror. The woman staring back wasn't the one they remembered. The shy, quiet sister always seeking approval.
No.
She was sharper now. Harder. He wanted half. I'd leave him with nothing. By the time the sun set, I had already called my lawyer, moved several accounts, and set up a private meeting with an investigator who specialized in corporate leaks. If Gabriel wanted to play dirty, he'd soon realize I was born in the mud. He only pretended to understand. And when I was done, when he finally came crawling back because I'd make sure the only thing left for him to hold on to was regret. Because this time, I wasn't fighting for family. I was fighting for everything they tried to take from me. The night after the article broke, I sat in the dark, staring at the glowing city skyline through my window. The laughter and hum of life outside felt like a cruel reminder that the world was still spinning while mine was slowly imploding. Every ping from my phone made my stomach twist tighter. Investors wanted answers. Board members wanted reassurance. And beneath all the polite concern, I could feel it doubt. They were wondering if the whispers were true. If Eliza Moreno, the woman they'd built their trust on, had built her empire on deceit. The next morning, I didn't even have to check the news. My assistant, Jessica, burst into my office, her pale face confirming everything. Ms. Moreno, someone leaked your old tax records. They're online. It's spreading fast. I closed my eyes. How bad is it? Bad, she whispered. They're saying your seed funding came from an untraceable offshore account. Anonymous blogs, social media, it's everywhere. Who posted it first? She hesitated. A smaller outlet. But now the bigger ones are picking it up. CNN just called. I nodded slowly. Ignore them for now. Draft a statement denying the allegations. Say we're investigating the leaks and we'll pursue legal action if necessary. Jessica looked at me, eyes full of pity. Do you think it's your brother? I stared out the window. I don't think. I know. When she left, I slumped in my chair and buried my face in my hands. The office, usually my fortress, suddenly felt like a cage. Every noise seemed amplified. The ticking clock, the hum of the air conditioner, the distant chatter of employees who were no doubt whispering about me. By noon, my phone was ringing nonstop. Journalists, lawyers, friends pretending to be concerned but really hungry for gossip. I ignored them all. My only focus was Gabriel. He'd drawn first blood, and now I had no choice but to strike back. I called the investigator I'd hired, a quiet man named Howard who preferred to work in shadows.
Find him, I said.
I want to know who he's meeting, what he's saying, and who's funding him. Don't come back until you have something solid. Understood, he said simply. Hours passed. The day bled into night. I was still in the office when the lights outside went out, leaving me alone with the city's reflection. Somewhere between exhaustion and fury, I started remembering the last real conversation I'd had with Gabriel before everything fell apart. It was after Dad's funeral. We were both standing by the gravesite, the air heavy with rain and resentment. I remember him saying, "You think you can fix everything with money, Eliza, but some things you broke can't be bought back." And I remember saying, "At least I'm fixing something. What have you done but blame everyone else for your failures?" He walked away that day, jaw tight, hands shaking. I should have known he'd never forgive me. The next few days were chaos. My company's PR team scrambled to control the narrative. Lawyers prepared for possible investigations. And me? I barely slept. I was living off caffeine, anger, and sheer willpower. Then, just as things started to calm down, Howard called. "You're not going to like this," he said. "Tell me anyway." I tracked your brother to several meetings with a journalist named Matthew Klein. He's freelance, but has ties to a couple of national outlets. And he's been paid, generously, from a shell account that traces back to your own company's funds. I froze. What did you just say? Someone inside is helping him. Someone with access to your internal accounts. My stomach dropped. Do you know who? I have a name, he said. Jessica Collins. For a moment, I couldn't breathe. Jessica? My assistant? The same woman who had stood by me through every meeting, every crisis? No, I said firmly. You must be mistaken. I'm not. The wire transfers came from her workstation. The money trail's clean, too clean. Whoever's behind this knows what they're doing. I hung up without saying another word. My hands were shaking as I grabbed my phone and called her. No answer. I tried again. Still nothing. Then I sent a text. We need to talk.
Now.
Minutes later, she replied, I'm sorry, Eliza. I didn't mean for it to go this far. My blood went cold. I rushed to the parking lot and got in my car, driving faster than I should have. When I reached her apartment, her car was there, lights on inside. I didn't even knock. I pounded on the door until she opened it, her face pale and tear-streaked. Why? I demanded, pushing past her into the room. Why would you do this to me? She sank into a chair, shaking. He said it was just about finding the truth. He said you'd stolen from him, that you ruined his career. I didn't know he was going to leak everything. You gave him access to my company's accounts, I hissed. You let him use my own money to destroy me. I was going to tell you, she said weakly. I thought I could fix it before it got out. Fix it, I snapped. You've handed him everything. You've handed him me. She started to cry. I'm so sorry, Eliza. He said he'd pay off my student loans, that he'd help me get a better job. I thought. I turned away before I could say something I'd regret. My entire body was trembling with rage. You're fired, I said coldly. And if I ever see you again, it won't be in an office. It'll be in court. She reached for me, but I stepped back. I didn't want her apology. I didn't want her excuses. I just wanted her gone. By the time I got home, I was shaking so hard I could barely unlock the door. I dropped my purse on the floor and went straight to the study. My safe was still there, untouched. But I didn't trust anything anymore. I opened it anyway, double-checking the documents inside, financials, deeds, contracts. Everything was still where it should be. Then I saw something that made me freeze. A new envelope, placed neatly on top of the rest. I hadn't put it there. Inside was a single sheet of paper with one sentence written in Gabriel's handwriting. You can't win, Eliza. I learned from the best. My vision went white. He'd been in my house. Again. I backed away from the desk, heart pounding so loudly I could barely hear. I grabbed my phone and called the security company. Upgrade every camera, I ordered. Inside and out. Motion sensors. Alarms. Everything. The operator asked if I'd had a break-in. No, I said, staring at the letter. Something worse. Over the next few days, I became obsessed with watching the camera feeds. I barely ate, barely slept. Every time a car slowed down in front of the house, I flinched. Every creak at night made me jump. But then one evening, the footage caught something. A man, standing just beyond the gate, face obscured by a hood, watching, for hours. I sent the clip to Howard immediately. His response was short. That's him. Gabriel. He wasn't hiding anymore. The next day, I received another email, no subject, no sender. Just a video attachment. Against every instinct, I clicked it. It was footage of me, standing in my living room, speaking to Howard on the phone 2 nights ago. Every word, every movement, recorded. The camera angle, it wasn't from the security system. It was from inside the house. My knees went weak. I ran to the living room, scanning every corner until I found it, small black, tucked behind the bookshelf. A camera. I ripped it out, my breath coming in gasps. He'd been watching me. That night, I packed a bag and checked into a hotel downtown under a different name. I didn't tell anyone where I was going. I didn't even bring my personal phone, just a burner one I bought from a convenience store. But even there, I couldn't sleep. Every sound made my skin crawl. Every knock on the door made me think it was him. I was living in fear, something I promised myself I'd never do again. Then, Just as dawn broke, my burner phone buzzed. A text. Running won't save you. No name. No number. But I knew who it was. I sat there for a long time, staring at those words. Something inside me snapped. If he wanted war, fine. But this time, I wasn't going to play defense. I picked up the phone and called Howard. Change of plans, I said. I don't want surveillance. I want leverage. He paused. You mean? Yes, I said. Dig up everything you can on him. His finances. His contacts. His past cases. I want dirt. Enough to bury him. He didn't ask questions. Just said, understood. When I hung up, I looked at myself in the mirror. My eyes were bloodshot, my hair disheveled, but beneath the exhaustion was something fierce. He thought he could destroy me by exposing my past. But he forgot who taught him how to fight dirty in the first place. He forgot I was the one who survived everything: poverty, betrayal, heartbreak. And if he wanted to play games with fire, I'd show him what a real inferno looked like. Because this wasn't just about money or power anymore. This was personal. This was revenge. When the plane touched down in Montego Bay, I felt the first real breath of freedom I'd had in years. Warm wind, thick with the smell of sea salt and hibiscus, brushed against my face as I stepped off that plane. My knees trembled, not from fear, but from relief. I was finally out of their reach, out of their manipulation, out of that country where my children saw me as a burden instead of the woman who'd sacrificed everything for them. My heart beat hard, almost painfully, as I gripped my purse close. Inside it was all I had left: my passport, a few $1,000s from what I'd secretly saved over the years, and a letter I'd written to my children. The one I never mailed. It simply said, "You forgot who raised you." But I didn't forget who I am. The immigration officer gave me a curious smile when he looked at my one-way ticket. "Visiting family, ma'am?" he asked. I smiled, my lips trembling slightly.
No.
Starting a new life. He chuckled softly, stamped my passport, and waved me through. I was 74, standing in a new country with nothing but faith, a small suitcase, and a lifetime of lessons that burned too deep to forget. My name is Martha Green, and this, I decided, was the day my second life began. The taxi driver who picked me up was a young man named Denzel. He had an easy smile, and when I told him I'd come from America, he nodded politely. "A lot of folks come back home when they get older," he said. "Tired of all that cold weather." "I didn't come home," I replied softly, watching the palm trees blur past the window. "But I did come to peace." He gave me a long look through the rearview mirror, but didn't pry. That was what I liked about him already. He didn't need the full story to show kindness. When he dropped me off at a small guest house near the beach, the air felt alive. I could hear the sound of waves hitting the shore, children laughing somewhere in the distance, and reggae music floating lazily from a nearby cafe. That night, I sat on the balcony, a cup of hot tea in my hands, watching the ocean. For the first time in decades, no one was calling me Mom in that demanding tone.
No one was checking my bank account.
No one was making plans for my life without asking me. Still, peace came with guilt, and guilt came with memories. I thought about the morning I left. I had woken up before dawn, packed my things, and left a note on the kitchen counter. I didn't write much, just that I loved them, but I was done being treated like a problem they needed to solve. I didn't want their apologies. I didn't want to argue. I just wanted to be free before I died. I booked my flight using the money I'd quietly withdrawn over months. They thought I didn't understand online banking, but I did. They thought they'd hidden my savings when they moved my account to make it easier to manage my expenses. They forgot I'd worked 30 years as a hospital bookkeeper. I knew every trick. When they sold my house, I was already gone. When they called to tell me the good news about the nursing home, I was sitting in a cafe in Atlanta waiting for my connecting flight. They thought they could box me into some facility where they'd visit once a month, take photos for social media, and then go back to their lives.
No.
I'd rather die on a beach with my own dignity than live like a caged bird in their version of care. I didn't disappear out of spite. I disappeared out of survival. In the days that followed, I started to build a small rhythm for myself. Every morning, I'd walk down to the beach, talk with a few locals, and help out at a small community center nearby. They called me Miss Martha and treated me like family, even though I was just another old woman with a story. But one afternoon, while helping the children with their reading, my phone, an old one I'd kept hidden, started buzzing. Unknown number. I froze. My stomach knotted. Against my better judgment, I answered. Mom, it was Jasmine, my youngest. Her voice cracked, sounding smaller than I remembered. I didn't speak for a moment. My throat closed up. Mom, where are you? Please, we've been worried sick. You just vanished. Worried, I said quietly, my voice shaking with restrained pain. Worried like when you all sold my house without asking? Or worried like when you picked out a nursing home before I even packed a bag? There was silence. Mom, we made mistakes. I know we did, she said, her voice trembling. But you scared us. You didn't even say goodbye. I said goodbye a long time ago, Jasmine, I whispered. You just didn't hear it. I don't want your money, I continued after a pause. And I don't want your guilt. I just want peace. Please let me have that. Her voice broke. Where are you? At least tell me you're safe. I thought about lying, but something inside me softened. I'm somewhere warm, I said. Somewhere beautiful. Somewhere I finally feel like myself again. Then I hung up. That night I cried. Not because I regretted leaving, but because I finally allowed myself to feel everything I'd buried for years. The exhaustion, the loneliness, the heartbreak of realizing your children grew up to become strangers. A week later, I got another call, this time from an unknown lawyer. My hands trembled as I answered. Mrs. Green, the man said, your children have filed a missing persons report. There's also a legal matter regarding your assets. They're requesting access to your pension fund. I laughed bitterly. Of course they are. Do you want to give a statement? He asked carefully. Yes, I said. Tell them Martha Green is alive, in good health, and not interested in being found. I could almost hear the pause on his end. Understood, ma'am. After that, I changed my number. I let the waves erase the last pieces of the life I'd left behind. Months passed. My skin grew darker under the Caribbean sun, and my heart lighter with every passing day. I started helping at the center full-time, teaching kids to read, to sew, even to crochet. Oh, the irony of it. Crochet classes, my son-in-law had said. I smiled every time I picked up a hook, not out of sadness, but because I'd taken back the one thing they'd tried to take from me, my joy. One evening, as the sun set in ribbons of gold and crimson, a local woman named Gloria sat beside me. You got the look of someone who's been running, she said softly. I admitted. But I think I finally stopped. She nodded. Sometimes we don't run away. We just walk toward where we belong. Her words stayed with me. Weeks later, a letter arrived for me at the guest house. It had no return address. Inside was a photo, my children sitting together on a couch, holding a sign that read, "We're sorry, Mom." I stared at it for a long time. I didn't cry. I didn't smile. I simply placed it in my drawer beside my passport. Maybe one day, I'd write back. Maybe not. That night, I walked to the shoreline. The tide was high, and the moonlight shimmered across the water like silver lace. I whispered to the waves, "You'll love the new nursing home," and laughed softly, letting the sea carry my laughter away. I was free. Free to live. Free to be forgotten. Free to remember who I was before I became someone's mother, someone's caretaker, someone's obligation. For the first time in my 74 years, I didn't feel invisible. I felt alive. And as the waves rolled in, washing over my feet, I made myself a quiet promise. I would live every single day like it was my last gift to myself. Because maybe disappearing wasn't the end, it was finally, mercifully, the beginning. If Martha's journey touched your heart, or if you've ever dreamed of taking back your freedom and dignity, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell icons so you never miss another story like this. And please drop a comment below telling us where you're watching from. We'd love to hear your thoughts and stories too.